Hello everyone and welcome to another very interesting game from the UzChess Cup 2024, Nodirbek Yakubboev versus Parham Maghsoodloo. Now we've covered a lot of games by Yakubboev, also we've covered a lot of games by Parham. You know that whenever Parham plays, there is fire all over the board. So this game is no exception, and the tournament basically turned into the battle of two Nodirbeks, of Nodirbek Abdusattorov and Nodirbek Yakubboev. Nodirbek Yakubboev being the bottom seed of the tournament, and Nodirbek Abdusattorov being the top seed of the tournament. And if you remember last year in Qatar Masters, in the end, after 9 rounds have been played, Nodirbek Yakubboev and Nodirbek Abdusattorov shared first place, and then they went into tie breaks because there were actually tie breaks in that tournament where you play more games. Yakubboev defeated Abdusattorov both the games and won first place in the Qatar Masters 2023. Here, however, there were no additional tie breaks, so Yakubboev won the tournament just by playing all 9 rounds and having the exact amount of points as Nodirbek Abdusattorov, but with slightly better additional criteria. He was winning against Yuan Gui in the final game, but in the end it did fizzle out into a draw. But Nodirbek wins again as the bottom seed of the tournament, and if he continues like this, he won almost 30 points this tournament. He's now probably 2650. He will reach 2700 very, very soon. I mean, he already won two really strong tournaments in less than a year. The future is very certain for him. So let's check out this game. Like I said, whenever Parham plays, there is nowhere to hide. We have pawn to d4 by Nodirbek and knight to f6. We have pawn to c4, e6, knight to f3, the anti-Nimzo, not allowing bishop to b4, and bishop to e7. We have knight to c3, and castles kingside, pawn to e4, and pawn to d5. So pretty standard stuff like you would have in the Nimzo, only the bishop is not on b4. We have c captures, e captures, and pawn to e5, chasing away the knight, which is very, very important. If you're not sure how to play this with black, it could get very dangerous because white will gain control over this diagonal, then some knight g5, queen h5 stuff happens, and all of a sudden you just lose. So knight to e4 and bishop to d3. And now, interestingly, here knight captures on c3 was played, and it's a new move that has never been played before, but there is a game in 1997 between Andrei Lavrov and Vladimir Alfinov where knight to g5 was played, and it looks like a move you should be able to play. The knight is sufficiently defended, but this is how the game continued, and it's a really fun variation. Knight captures, bishop captures, and queen to h5. So okay, black didn't overlook checkmate or losing the piece here because he played pawn to h6, and nothing is wrong here. But pawn to f4 actually forces black to resign here. There is no move. After pawn to f4, the bishop will have to move back, then pawn to f5 comes pawn to f6, and you just fall apart. The actual game continued with bishop captures on g5, and they traded queens, h captures, and white just won the d5 pawn, and it's a pretty clean game. White was, I think, a FIDE master, and black was unrated. That's why the variation happened. But yeah, I mean, it is very nice. Here, Parham does no such thing. He plays knight captures on c3, and it is not as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. B captures, we have pawn to c5, challenging the center, queen to c2 now, putting pressure on the h7 pawn, so h6 and queen back to d1. The queen is no longer useful here, and you might consider something like bishop back to b1, queen c2, and threaten checkmate, since there's no way for Parham to put a knight on f6. So knight to c6 and castles kingside. We have queen to a5 going after the c3 pawn, and as you'll see, this queen to a5 isn't all that impressive as it might seem. Bishop to d2, we have c captures on d4, c captures on d4, and now bishop to b4, countering the dark square bishop and hoping to trade material. But Nodirbek not interested. He just plays bishop to e3. He says, all right, you can have your pieces on the queen side. I want to attack your king. And with your setup on the queen side doing, well, really doing nothing, this is a dream position for me. And now the problem is, how do you continue this position for Parham? Let's try bishop g4. It seems like a move everyone would play. Well, the problem is h3, and now you either give up the bishop pair, which is pretty bad, then white really gains control over this diagonal, or you go h5, you provoke g4, and after this you just capture on g6, and you give white a beautiful pass pawn here. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to play bishop to e6, which looks a bit more passive, but then comes knight to h4, then f4, f5, and again, it does not look great. So that's why Parham says, all right, you have a very strong center, let's break it. Pawn to f6. E captures, rook captures on f6, and now knight to e5. And here, well, you could continue with bishop to f5. It certainly makes sense. This is a beautiful piece. This piece isn't doing all that much. But Parham plays knight to e7 first. It's hard to say why. Probably he wants to play bishop to f5, and if Nodirbek captures, he wants to recapture with the knight. And this would be an excellent square for the knight. But there is a problem. There is a move that Nodirbek can play here that ruins all of Parham's plans. So feel free to pause the video. And what would you play in this position? You know, while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on not being afraid of, scary stuff. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is pawn to g4. And yes, you do open up your king a little bit, but you gain control over the f5 square. And without the f5 square, what does Parham have here? He has pieces that go nowhere, and he has a queen and bishop on the queen side doing nothing. So he has to remedy this somehow. He brings the bishop back, bishop to d6, you could, well, no, you really can't. You can't further attack the pawn. Yeah, bishop to d6. It's even one of the top moves recommended by the engine. We have pawn to f4. Now saying, okay, if you capture, I'm just going to improve my presence in the center. Rook to f8, as you know, g5 is also coming, so rook to f8, and now pawn to f5. Knight to c6, going after the knight here, and now knight to g6, attacking the rook, rook e8, and queen to f3, defending the bishop on e3. We have queen back to d8. This is how Parham tries to reactivate his pieces, but now pawn to h4. And what do you play here? You know that those pawns are marching forward. We have bishop to c7, maybe with some plans of queen to d6, maybe in hopes of a queen trade, but it doesn't look very believable. You know, you can always play bishop to f4. The f4 square is nicely guarded by the queen, rook, and knight. So king to h1. And now knight to b4, attacking the bishop, but just a very nice calm bishop to b1. If needed, you will even play a3, kick away the knight, bring the bishop back, then activate the rook, so it's not a problem. We have pawn to b6, preparing to develop the light square bishop. Pawn to g5. We have bishop to a6, attacking the rook on f1, and while you could move the rook, no one would blame you, pawn to f6. The threat being pawn to f7, and there's really not much more for Parham to do here. He plays g captures, we have g captures, and even bishop captures on f1, but now pawn to f7 with check. We have king to g7, and now pawn captures on e8 with an under promotion to a knight. This comes with check, so queen captures, and now knight to f4. Very nice move. Prepares knight to h5 and also stops ideas like maybe bishop to d3, as the square is now nicely controlled by the bishop and by the knight. And you're asking, well, do you want to capture on f4? I'm going to capture with the queen, put pressure on the h6 pawn, the bishop also doing good work here. There is no good move here for Parham. There's only, different ways of going down. So he plays king to h8. Okay, if the bishop is captured, then he will also capture the bishop on e3. So that's definitely not the best. But what is best is bishop to g6, attacking the black queen. So queen to e7, now hoping to win the h4 pawn, but now just queen to h5, defending and attacking the h6 pawn. King to g7, and now, you could capture this, but then it's really only a matter of a check, and the checkmate. So here we have king to g7, defending the h6 pawn, but the position as is still completely winning for Nodirbek. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the cleanest way, the fastest possible way to victory, while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on always looking for the coolest possible way to sacrifice more material. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight to e6 check. This forces the king back. This opens up the f-file for the rook to come to the f-file if needed. And there's really nothing more to be done. And also the knight here prevents the queen from capturing on e3. So if you don't capture, just rook captures on f1. I mean, so you have to capture. There's really nothing else for you to do. And after captures, Nodirbek just played queen, captures on h6, and he was in this position on move 35 that Parham Maghsoodloo resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Point being that if you go to f6, then it's a matter of a nice bishop to g5 checkmate. You can see that the bishops are doing fine work here, and the pawn controlling the e5 square, bishop covering g6. This is covered by the queen. So no more squares for the black king. And also after queen captures, if you go to g8, then it's a matter of queen to h7, king to f8, and the bishop to h6 checkmate. A very nice double bishop queen checkmate. So yeah, it's a very nice game, very interesting line. They've played this bishop to d3 move, allowing Nodirbek this e5 move, and you've seen this many times. You've seen it in your own games. You know that if e5 is played, the knight moves from f6, how vulnerable the king side becomes. And even grandmasters sometimes, they probably just think, okay, I'm a 2700 grandmaster. I know what I'm doing. I can break some basic chess principles. Sometimes you can, but sometimes you really can't. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Very nicely done by Nodirbek. Big congratulations to him on winning this, as these are the final standings. You can see that he's the bottom seed, 26-34, and he wins the tournament ahead of all of these incredible players. Like I said, out of the 10 players here, 8 of them are over 2700. And second place, of course, Nodirbek Abdusattorov with a staggering 2766. I mean, incredible performance by Nodirbek Yakubboev. And yeah, he's winning tournaments left and right. I have no doubt that maybe even this year we see him on 2700. But we'll see how it goes. So that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Shangu, Derek King, EK McAllister, Eric, Keith McAllister, and MB Wright for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And this is probably the last video for today, as today is my birthday. So I will probably, be busy having a very nice time with some people. But I also might record a video. I never even know myself. See you soon.